This conference will now be recorded.
Is that the process to get an application? Okay, so let's assume that this was the process. Everything I said, because on the application, it says verbatim, all the motions that it goes through to get to you guys, so you guys can approve or disapprove, and if you approve, then it would go to the next level. So we went through all those motions, complete the money, everything, and I'm gonna sum it up real quick. Shortly thereafter, we received a phone call from one of the staff saying that, sorry, but your application has been denied, and then you need to come by and pick up the check. You know, we kind of asked a little bit like, okay, doesn't sound like this is how it works, but let me just talk to my wife, let us collect our thoughts. So there we, went by there and said, hey, look, we're not, we don't want it. We want this to go. We'll just, try to keep the ball rolling down the road. And so now, here we are. And really all we're looking for is somebody that could help us, unless there's some wild card that we don't know about, can help us keep the ball rolling. But just for the record, the city has a completed application, has the money, and there's more to it. The sandbag and everything, this should have been in, for this meeting, not March 7th. But now, if the ball goes any further standing still, then March 7th won't be a reality. So what we're looking for is if somebody could just point us in the right direction to help keep this going.
Thank you. Mr. Shep.
I think he summed it up.
Okay. Joe Sullivan. Now this is for anything that's on the agenda tonight.
Yep, we're on the agenda tonight.
Okay, so this is not yet. This is just a public hearing. So if you wait for a second, we'll call you.
You bet.
Sorry. Right.
I think I'm addressing an item on the agenda.
So you gotta speak now, or you gotta speak with the academy?
What have you got?
Rodney?
Yes, I had comments about 631 Academy.
Helen McMillan?
It's also academy. I misunderstood. I asked, should I put my name down? I misunderstood that if it was an agenda item, I didn't have to put my name down, but I'm here 6/12, 6/31 academy.
Okay. Susan Gerard?
It's all for 631 Academy.
Pamela Katz?
Same.
Okay, so, with that completed, we'll open the public hearing at this time. And the first up is going to be 413 9th Street. Do you want to discuss that? Okay. Okay, the next one on our list will be 631 Academy. So we have several people that are going to speak on that. Where is Mr. Sullivan, I guess?
Sure. I'm Joe Sullivan. This is my wife, Linda. We're the owners of 631 Academy. We were told by Ms. Kunstler that we were to put in a variance for a supplemental use permit for 2 existing structures we had remodeled there. Have you all had an opportunity to read the letter that I sent in with the variance? Have you seen that letter that I sent with the variance application?
I have several, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's at the bottom. I'll just read it. I'll try to summarize it as quickly as I can for the sake of time. I sent this on November 26th to the city with the variance application. I said, dear review board, on August 21st of 2020, myself, Linda, and I went under contract with Rio Blanco Contractors to remodel 2 existing units located behind the main house at 631 Academy. One of the units on the plat is defined as a carport. The other is defined as a woodshed. And you can see that on the plat that was associated with the paperwork on the very last page. With consultation between the City of Blanco Code and Compliance Officer, Mr. Davies, Rio Blanco Contractors, myself, Linda, and I, in the timeframe of July and August of 2020, it was determined that a remodel permit was needed to comply with the code since no major structural changes were to be made to the existing structure. So what you have is you have the house, which we use for a long-term rental, and there was an existing structure, it was a carport, and then there was another existing structure behind that was a woodshed. We went to the city, total transparency, before we even bought the property, and we wanted to confirm that it was mixed use, coded for mixed use, which it is. I had confirmation from Mr. Davies. I also had a letter from Kelly later, which we'll get to, also confirmed that it was a mixed use property when we bought the property in June 15th of 2020. So we went to the city and said, hey, is this mixed use? We want to remodel these back 2 units. What is the correct course of action? According to Mr. Davies, our contractor, Linda and myself, he said it was required us to do a remodel permit since they're existing structures and no other existing structural changes were to be made. So we were assured by the code and compliance officer that the property was classified as mixed use, which our understanding was residential and commercial, and that the property was correctly classified as mixed use. Additionally, we worked with Blanco Public Works to determine the best water sewage options, which would work best for both parties. No time during this process, again, total transparency with the city, knowing what we were going to do with these 2 remodel permits, were we made aware of any requirement for a supplemental use permit. So we, my wife and I, and our contractors, working with the city administration, Mr. Davies and Public Works, we're totally aware of what we're going to do. At that time, we weren't sure if we were going to do short-term or long-term rentals. We then made a decision yet that the city was well involved in that process of how we wanted to properly permit it. So we did speak to remodel permits. My wife and I, with that information, we made significant investment in those 2 units located behind the pre-existing structures located behind the main unit. The remodel project was completed in June 2021, and we started renting the units as short-term properties. With they're properly coded for code 6 for commercial use water, and they're also, all of our hotel taxes have been paid and now up to date. So we've been complying with that. We got the water recoded to code 6, which is commercial, and all hotel properties again have been paid. On November 1st of 2021, pretty much out of the blue, we received a letter from Ms. Kelly Kunstler, the city administrator, interim. She informed us that our 2 rental properties were not properly coded based on documentation that she had. On November 17th of 2021, we met with Ms. Kunstler to determine the proper course of action. And she recommended that we request a special use permit to the City of Blanco Planning and Zoning Board. That's why we're here today. We had operated our business in totally good faith in what we believe to be the correct process based on numerous interactions with the City of Blanco, the City of Blanco representation, before, during, and after the remodeling process. Additionally, all short-term rental properties have been correctly coded for water usage. Hotel taxes have been paid. We're here today. I guess the process is we had 2 meetings with Ms. Kunstler regarding why exactly do we need to do this supplemental use permit, and we asked for the documentations to confirm that that is the process in which we had to take. And apparently, she's no longer with the city. We never were told exactly why this was the process, since we believed we did everything in the right procedures with the city, total transparency with the city. They had been operating for 6 months, generating income for the city. And then, so we never got that documentation. We did have a discussion with Mr. Warren here, and we decided his recommendations, we continue with this process and seek this supplemental use permit for those 2 remodeled pre-existing units. Additionally, we were talking to the city about putting 2 more units in the back half of that property. It's a 0.91 acre unit. And me and my wife are heavily invested in the city. And again, we would like to provide the short-term housing, which is in total compliance, we believe, with the new City of Blanco Unified Development Code, Section 1.2, which is creating investment, creating good, affordable, high-end properties in the Blanco area. It's approximately 1 minute from here, car drive. And like I said, we're heavily invested in those properties. I can bring you in documentation showing the comments of people and the clientele we're bringing into those units. We've brought into roughly $2,500 so far in tax revenues in the first 6 months of operating for the city of Blanco. Additionally, the comments we're receiving have been nothing but spectacular about not only the units that we provided, but also the city of Blanco. And we know there's additional tax revenues that they're bringing in. They mentioned all of the local residents, local establishments that they've been enjoying. So we know there's additional tax revenues coming in through these units. Since late June 2021, we provided the city of Blanco with 2 clean, comfortable, strategically located units for the visitors to enjoy. There is no doubt that the visitors are increasing the city of Blanco's tax base by indulging in all of the wonderful opportunities our community has to offer. Since I wrote that, I've had the opportunity to go ahead and read the 317-page City of Blanco Unified Development Code in detail. I'm an airline pilot, so I've been flying my tail off during this COVID, so I finally had an opportunity to sit down and read through some of that. The City of Blanco Unified Development Code appears to have been dated November 11th of 2020. And that was after we had received the permit and worked with the city. There are 2 paragraphs in here that we also believe section 1.5 and section 1.9 that my interpretation has been that the 2 existing units are at least grandfathered in under the City of Blanco Unified Code. So
On 1.9, what section are you looking at?
yes, ma'am, it is section 1.5, paragraph 2, page 4 of 317, and section 1.9, paragraph 1, page 5 of 317.
Chapter 4.
Yes, sir, that last one is chapter 4, I believe. So it's section 1.5 and then section 1.9. They're pages 4 and page 5 of Uniform Code, of the new code.
I'll get to it.
So that's sort of where we're at with the first 2 units. Again, to summarize, we believe we worked in total faith, total confidence. The clientele we're bringing in is high end. To my knowledge, there's been absolutely no complaints of noise. There's been no complaints of any malfeasance on any of our clientele that's been there. And like I said, it was totally transparent to us we were operating this business, and then Ms. Kusler finally notified us that it was coded wrong. So now we have to go through this process. So here we are. On the advice of Warren, we continue with this variance process. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is we still have almost a half acre behind those units, which abuts Callahan Road, which we'd also like to invest in. That's the second part of this request, is to get permission to put additional properties back there if, of course, if in fact it meets all of the current zoning laws, setbacks and all that. Of course, now we're getting familiar with the process. So that's the sort of the second part of this request.
Okay, so there's two things you're asking us tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes,
First part is what it already is established and has been since early 2020. And the second part is some additional land units that you're asking to have a variance on. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
One comment I might make is that the city was aware of our intentions to do those 2 units in the back. And so our sewer was ran along a direction so that we could tap into it. So they knew of our intentions, that once these 2 projects were finished, we plan to move on to the other 2.
I have a letter here, October 20th, 2021, from Kelly in regards to some correspondence I had with her. Number one, it said the property referenced above, the houses, the 2 cabins at 631 Academy are zone mixed use. So that doesn't appear to be an issue. That was the zoning when we bought the property. And she also stated in paragraph 5 of this, and I can show this to the board if you would like. She said, you asked about placing 2 more cabins on the property under mixed use. You can legally do this. However, determination must be made if you have enough land and able to place 2 units more on the piece of property. Again, that would be in accordance with the new zoning laws. So that we have pursued. I would also like to add, my wife and I will make the determination if we do want to invest in those properties if it's approved. We haven't made that decision yet, but we thought while we're going through this process, this would be the prime opportunity to talk to the board to get approval for 2 more units or 1 unit if we decide to go that route. So we haven't, like I said, we have not made a determination if we're going to invest back there, but we want the opportunity in the board to approve it if in fact we do. We understand we have to go through the whole process, get plans and not for the development and meet the current zoning codes. We are aware of that. I'd also like to note that we do have significant investment in that area, so those properties. And it's been bringing in quite a bit of revenue for the city. And it's been a good business investment for us as well. And we want to continue to invest in the city.
And one other thing I would like to say is since we purchased that property, we have done improvements. We've made the front house is now immaculately groomed. It was all grown over and covered up and looked horrible. Our properties are very well maintained. They're very clean. There is no debris or trash or anything. They're very, very well kept properties, and I feel that that even brings value to the neighborhood because it has definitely made the neighborhood look better.
And that is consistent with section 1.2, page 2, consistency with the comprehensive plan. It says, subparagraph 1, maintain the appearance of rural character of Blanco. Well, we didn't make no exterior changes other than upgrade the landscaping in the front house. Subparagraph 2, protect the small town character of Blanco as growth occurs and promote affordable housing. That can be interpreted a couple of ways. We interpret it as short-term housing. So I think we are totally in compliance with consistency with the comprehensive plan. It says implement challenging projects in a professional manner that does not conflict with community values. I think we've done that. It talks about promote positive growth, promote a mix of business in the downtown area. I think all the business can be considered in that in the downtown area. Like I mentioned, we're less than a minute away drive. We are bringing I can't quantify it, but we are bringing a considerable amount of taxes into the city with our renters using the businesses in the downtown area. So again, that's on page 2, section 1.2, consistency with the comprehensive plan. We think we are total compliance with that. And that is the intention we continue to endeavor with those units and maybe future units if we get approval to do it.
Any questions? Or-
Just out of clarification, we have several other people that were talking about the same property.
I don't know, do we have several people who talk about this property?
We were all been talking, and we've been,
Yeah.
at least how we hear all of it.
Yeah, we might call
We'll
you.
come back. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right format, but I've got.
I don't know either. We'll go.
Well, I'm gonna try. All right, this is a variance, not a special use permit request. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so we're gonna assume that
Right.
that's what it is.
Okay, well, we were told by Kelly,
She
We
gave
were-
us the form.
she told us that we were to use, and there was a lot of confusion with Kelly and Olga on what exactly we were supposed to use. And when I asked Kelly for the proper documentation to show me to show me the documentation in which we have to request, she says, well, just use the variance form. So on the variance form, which Olga handed us, is the request for the supplemental use permit, which, so when we went through this process with Kelly, when Kelly told us that we needed a supplemental use permit, I asked her, could you please show me that in the bylaws or show me that in ordinance? And she said, well, we don't have a supplemental use permit request. You have to use the variance application. And we said, well, okay. So we initially put the variance request in and they said, oh, no, this is not what you need. We said, well, what do we need? They said, well, you have to have the variance request, which we put in there. And in that variance request, you have to ask what you requested. Okay, so it was a supplemental use permit. And then they made us write this enormous check for this process to occur. So Kelly told us that we're supposed to request a supplemental use permit for those two existing units. I can't tell you what document directs that or what not, because Kelly had gone by the time we tried to get clarification on that.
I didn't think you did variance.
Yeah, but that is definitely the
Okay, that's not mine.
sheet that they gave us, was the variance request.
Okay, so you, I guess, and I'm just trying to collect some information, so, but I guess basically you use the variance request form, and then you did the supplemental request within that form.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that helps me out a lot. The current zoning of that property is SF3, is that correct?
The current one is R2.
R2. I'm sorry, I was using an old term. Okay, so it's R2. And R2 does allow for additional dwelling units supplemental to the primary residence, correct?
3 units,
I'm sorry, what?
3 units per acre.
3 units per acre on one lot? Do we know the size of the lot?
0.91.
918.
0.91. So that allows you 2.9.
They have.
Yep, I get.
Well, it's small units, so I think
Yeah, I understand. When you did the permits under the directive of Mr. Davis, did you submit plans?
no,
No plans?
no, we
They
would.
were not
They
required.
said they were not required, and we got that information through our contractors that were working directly with Mr. Davies.
Okay, I understand. I went back and looked at the permits, and they said remodel outbuildings, and they listed the square footage. I went back to the plat from 2002, and it showed the primary residence, it showed a carport, and it showed a proposed workshop, which I guess you're referring to as woodshed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a workshop.
So I'm going to assume that if you're trying to get a supplemental variance, or then you're doing that to change from 3 units per acre to allow 2 additional units. And
Yes,
that's
sir.
what you-
Initially, our first part of this variance or supplemental use permit, whatever we're asking for, is to receive to code the 2 existing units to make sure that they're in compliance with the city's code, which we believe are both grandfathered in under those 2 sections, which I previously mentioned.
That's fine.
And then the second half of that is to get 2 units in the back if the zoning allows.
So the special use permit, out of the UDC code, which is section 2.54, that's special use permit. Does the special use permit allow for discretionary city council approval of uses with unique or widely varied operating characteristics or unusual site development features subject to the terms and conditions set forth in the code? And then 2, such uses may locate in districts as indicated in table 4.2. If we could look at that, and then if you want to, conditions described in a special use permit recommended by planning and zoning and approved city council. No such use shall commence without prior approval, and then so on. So in this case, if it's a special use permit,
Well, it's not, it's a variance.
right, if he was going to go with a special use permit, I would just read it off. I don't think that's whole what he's asking for.
Okay, I understand. I was confused.
I'm just trying to make everybody on the same plane here.
Okay, all right. I have one last question. Prior to the approval of the new zoning map for 2021, yes, what was the zoning on this property?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's the only questions I've had. You help me out. I may be raising my hand again. Okay, thank you.
You want seconds, right? Anybody else want to speak to the 631 Academy?
Chair, Commissioners, my name is Rodney Brookhill, and I do live in the Pittsburgh neighborhood where the property is located on Academy. I'm here to get some questions answered. Some of them are already being answered. I've been confused as to how, by right, 2 ADUs were allowed on this property. Maybe I'm learning, and maybe I'll learn more about that tonight. I do want to say that I would be strongly opposed to a doubling of this commercial enterprise that's been placed in our single-family neighborhood. I do think it would change the character of the neighborhood and our quality of life. And unlike the applicant, I not only am a property owner, but I live in the neighborhood, so my investment is a little bit different. And I think there's some other people who can speak better to it than me, but I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm not as well educated as you all are in planning and zoning and all everything else talking about.
Thank you.
But I do have some comments. And I know that some of this, I read the 64 pages that are open from the open records that I requested. And I may have misunderstood some things, so bear with me. My name is Helen M. Canal. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about the variance request for 631 Academy Street. The grant request has also been called a special use permit. I grew up in Blanco and moved back in 1995 and have lived on Academy Street for 27 years. It is a quiet residential street in the old part of town called Pittsburgh. Homeowners on Academy and near property owners. Near the property owned by Joseph K. Sullivan, 631 Academy, were notified by a certified mail that he was requesting a special use permit. I requested and received 64 pages of open records on this property to determine what was meant by a special use permit. Mr. Sullivan extended a new driveway and used the shell of 2 buildings, garage and workshop, no electricity, no water, to construct 2 cabins behind the large rental house at 631 Academy. calling it a remodel. We started renting cabins in June of 2021. I read in the 64 pages of documents that he should have gotten the special use permit approved before starting any construction last year. Now he is requesting the special use permit for the already constructed cabin, but he is asking for a variance to build 2 more cabins on the less than 1 acre, 9.1 acres. 631 Academy, according to the zoning map, is R2. It has never been mixed use. And we can verify that. Never even since it was put together. No more than 3 dwellings per acre. He also has, he already has 3 dwellings. If he gets to add 2 more cabins and call it a variance, wouldn't that be a zoning change? I have other issues with this request for special use permit. I will close my remarks tonight with the issue of safety. Right now, it is my understanding that cabins are rented on short-term rental agreement using a formula based on 2 people renting a cabin for a weekend times 2 cabins equals 208 people in a year. That doesn't happen, for not every weekend will be rented. 104 strangers will be in my backyard. I am considered to be strangers in my backyard. I am considered to be a senior citizen living alone. I am not a frightened old woman, but I also am not stupid. Each weekend, having strangers 20 feet from my home is a little unsettling. I'm not in favor of Mr. Sullivan's request for a special use permit, variance, or anything else that's being called at this time. I admire y'all's willingness to be on this commission. Probably not an easy job. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Everyone else wants to speak? Please consider them. Daniel?
So my name is Susan Uriel, and I've lived on Academy Street for 20 years. So I have some questions about what the Sullivans are requesting as well. It's my understanding that on the 2014 map that Academy Street was zoned residential, and then now on the new map it is zoned R2, so staying with the residential. I don't think that it's ever, as far as I know, it's been considered mixed use. I think it's always been residential. And we tried to look back, or we did look back on the 2014 map, and that's what we saw. So I'd ask you to consider that when you're making the decision. I think I'm looking at it from probably a completely different standpoint from the Sullivans. It's a business for them. They're there to make money, which I fully understand. But it's my home, it's my neighborhood. So as committee considers the request, I ask you to think not only about the zoning of the property, but also the residential neighborhood with single family dwellings. We have couples, we have families with children, people that live alone. The safety issue that comes along with this type of short-term rental is a big concern. The property owner doesn't live on the property or even in the neighborhood. He has been operating this business without the correct permits for months, but doesn't even actually manage the property. He has an out-of-town company that's doing that. So my safety question is, who's making sure that the people that are making the reservations are people that are actually staying there? You know, when you go to a hotel, you check in, you have to give your ID. So, you know, who's checking the identification of the people that are staying in my backyard, in Helen's backyard, you know, right where we live, right where our kids are, you know, right where, you know, people that live alone are. Since the business started operating, we've added a motion detector camera at our house. One of the other neighbors put up a privacy fence because she was having people like looking in her backyard, you know, strangers, people that she didn't know. So for us, safety is definitely a concern. The asking for 2 more, you know, on top of what they already have, that, you know, a lot of people have been talking about that only allowing one ADU. I learned a lot of all this. But it seems like that having one accessory dwelling unit on a property like that is the norm, one, and they already have two, which, they were able to put in, before the R2 came into effect, but even in just a residential, it's my understanding that one of those is the norm. And they have two, so they've already exceeded the 3 per acre on the new zoning. And now they're asking for 2 more, so they're actually asking for 5, for less than an acre. So that's just kind of, my take on it from a different perspective. So just in closing, I ask you to please think about the existing conditions in our neighborhood. We're concerned about the safety, the quality of life, and the precedent that something like this sets, in basically in our backyard. Thank you.
And I need to correct something, Mike. I told you earlier that the academy was in 2014, was MX, it was R. I haven't copied it out.
Okay, so
It was R in 2020.
and R allowed 1 ADU?
5 units per acre.
R was 1 acre, 1 unit per acre for R1. But you have to understand, in 2020, we didn't have those. All we had was an
Well,
R,
they had R
R period.
or mix, so yeah.
So, but it wasn't an R, it was not an
And so, like I said, it's been my understanding that like in a residential, that like one of those ADUs has been the norm to be allowed. And so, he already has 2. So I asked, like, when you're considering, allowing him to put 2 more units, to think about that as well. And just, what the buildings are being used for. If he's trying to provide, an affordable place for someone to live, which indicates that it's part of what he's wanting to do, like a short-term rental isn't necessarily going to be doing that. It's an affordable place for someone that's going to live and work in Vico. It's a little bit different than another, like, just short-term for someone that's just coming to visit on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on then to see, does anyone want to speak in a public hearing at 205 Hackberry?
So we are here to seek the vote to fix what we have, the commercial building and residential R2 zoning, I believe. And, thank you to Warren for getting us on the agenda. I know that was a tough transition, and thank you for taking immaculate notes, whoever you were at the last meeting. It was very helpful. So we have submitted everything. Warren got it over to you guys, I believe, and I believe we had everything to meet the requirements. You guys said basically get the replat, and if you have 45 feet of frontage space, you have 45 feet and 7 inches. So, about that. And just wanted to get the recommendation, hopefully, from P&Z, and be back here tomorrow for city council.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak to that property? You don't have any questions from the panel or chapter?
I feel like we asked most from the last meeting, unless anybody wants, that wasn't here, doesn't remember what it was, but that made a lot of sense.
This is the one that was Henry Force.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They've already started to work on it.
Yes, and they have the 3 that on here and drawing engineering.
I think it made a lot of sense. We're just kind of waiting on that one little piece, so.
Okay,
I
so-
just wanted to confirm from my understanding on 631 Academy Street. I see there's 3 structures on there. A larger structure close to Academy, that is a single family home that is being rented.
Yes, sir.
But the long-term rental, and then there's 2 smaller structures in the back, and those have been remodeled into, now were used for a time as B&Bs.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's my question. Thank
Yes, sir. And again, I want to emphasize those were pre-existing and worked with the city before, during, and after that process to get the correct permits, in which we believe was the correct process with the former administration, if you will. So, thank you.
Okay, we have no more, nothing else, then I'm going to. Open the regular meeting. The first thing before we go before, I don't know how long we're gonna be here tonight, let's approve the minutes for December 6th.
I'll make a motion to approve my submitted.
I'll second.
I thought you were the only one.
Oh,
Everybody in agreement?
they were very detailed.
Okay, so now we have, in the regular business meeting, we need to have our discussion. First on the, 413 9th Street. And he's requesting, he's not even here tonight, is he the one that's not here? Yeah, he's gonna do that.
Council, the planning commission. My name is Warren Escovy. I'm the new city administrator, and kind of what I'm used to doing is giving you an analysis. And I've been a planning director for 6 or 7 years. Before that, I've been doing this for over 20. And I'm used to generally when you have the public hearing, you just have the public hearing taking comments, and then after that, you listen to the staff and then listen to anybody else after that. But I will mention to you on item 2 for consideration. So it's listed as a variance request, but when you look at this, it looks like it's rezoned to commercial. I'm really new to this, and I'm just looking at the information that was provided. So if I'm telling you that something's not true, just say something, but I believe that under other, it says rezone to commercial. So that area, I went and drove it today, took a look at it, walked around and took a look at everything. And that area is already kind of it's an R5, which my understanding is not commercial, but it's commercial and residential. So what I would say to the applicant, if they were here, is what I would prefer, rather than a rezone, which is it's very permanent, and you spent probably a year and a half doing the new zoning map, that if they need an SUP, a special use permit, if they need something specific, they need to talk to staff first and determine what the best use is, rather than doing a rezone. If they're not here, I would suggest that you just table the item. But my feeling is that rezoning should be the last resort. You really should be looking at what specific use they want to do. If it's something that we can work with them on with the SUP, we should do that.
You're talking about 631 Academy?
No, we're on 113 9th Street.
Oh,
413, that's 9th Street. So I see that they're not here, but if they were here, that's what I would say, is rather than doing a rezone, as staff, we should look at what kind of use they're trying to do and what we can do to help them.
Yeah, I have made some notes here, Warren, in regards to specifically what you're speaking to, that they want to rezone to commercial. And so they need to come forward with that, but even at a C1, they can't have outdoor storage. And so that would have to be the discussion if they come before us.
So yeah, that's correct. If that's what they wanted. If they wanted to do outdoor storage, and I didn't know that was the case. If that is, if you C1, then they also have to do an SUP, a special use permit, which I would have thought they would just do that together. I try to make things easy.
I don't know, since they didn't show up, I don't know what. Okay, so we're back to 631 Academy, is that right?
Yeah.
So we have any discussion on that? Motion?
It's a two-part question before us. The one is considering the current use of the property with the three structures on it, and the second request, the potential addition of two further units. I think the second part is probably the easier one to answer, because the properties zoned R2, meaning 3 units per acre. And, the existing structures on the property are within that zoning. So my take on the additional units would be not to allow that.
If I may, again, I kind of got into this in the middle of this. And this is a special use permit for the first 2 units. You have the long-term rental, the 2 cabins that are behind it. That's your special use permit. And then I guess the variance, if you want to call that, would be the additional 2 units. And from the standpoint of, yes, the city already allowed the first, well, the first unit was just a long-term rental, and then with the 2 cabins behind it, you saw the information from the former administrator allowing for that. And then the second question would be those 2 units and staff recommendation on that, on the additional 2 units that have not. So you're talking about R zoning from the beginning, which was, it was R. And then you're talking about now the new application is with this R2. The staff's opinion would be that the second part of this should be denied, and the first part should probably be approved because it's already existing. And that's kind of where reviewing everything. I spent hours with them and driving by thinking of all this stuff. That is where we're at. But it's all up to you and the council. Thank you.
I mean, that's why I suggest you have to look at the 2 parts and, that to make a decision on the 2 parts.
Well, I feel like that makes the most sense. I mean, one, we went through all the effort we could to try to do it the right way. And granted, sometimes it can be very misleading in the process, and I think that's something that we can all work on simplifying. But in the meantime, I think he went through what he thought he was supposed to. It's, I think if we're looking at it as 2 separate things. The first one, to me, makes a lot of sense. The second one, less so because of the people around it. So, kind of where I'm leaning.
Like they said, a planning area. And they're on a corner. They're on a front on in the Channel Road. It looks like if they had it the other 2. I know the area very well. My ex-daughter-in-law is in this neighborhood. In fact, they've got quite a bit of property there. I don't know, you always wish that the people that are doing these developments to talk to the neighbors before they get started. Find out what these people think and what they, because right now, I don't know my ex-daughter-in-law property, they have a similar situation across the street. They have, that's become a B&B. And I don't know how they got there. And that's what they do either.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You said there was a similar across the street?
The street from where Kim lives.
Okay, but not here.
Not here, but it's in the neighborhood. See, they've already gotten it started with the B&B thing right now. Somebody else. And I'm just throwing this out, is all of a sudden now, things are happening in this neighborhood, the old Pittsburgh neighborhood. From a planning standpoint, I think what they're proposing to do makes a lot of sense. But, you've got neighbors that have been there for years and, they don't want it.
We're still talking about 1 acre is what he has, not quite 1 acre, it's 0.91 acres. So he's on an acre ground.
Okay.
Yeah, I get your point, but I still think people, you're right, they have the right to buy property and make an investment in it, use it for what they should. And sometimes the neighbors might not agree, but as long as it's done the right way. And I can't fault somebody for making a smart investment.
And what they've gone through, I mean, I think, my God.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, he's okay right now with 3 in this lot. I mean, he has that, he's been using that, he's been paying tax on that.
Yeah.
He's been approved for that. I mean, I personally don't see, we'll have to find out what y'all think, but I don't see any reason to, that we'll go back on what he's got there.
Right.
But I don't know about the second. I don't think that we should go,
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. Yeah.
right.
Do we need a motion?
we need a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the special use on the 3, but not approve the variance.
I second that motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Okay, so let's move on to, 205 Hackett. This is Mr. McCann. And we saw him before, I believe it was in November. For a long time. Well, maybe November. And so, he's asking for a variance to allow the property, the building next to him, and replatted it, and I sent you on the replat, did y'all forget? I'm just playing along, so you all know they're not.
Do you want to make a motion on
I mean, I'm talking about if you want to do a motion, but just so you all just to remind you what we did. And, so he came back with the, 45.7, yeah, just that we're gonna have to do in the variance law, because it wasn't 80. And I think last time Brandon brought up the fact that it was out of code when he bought it, it was out of code when he could use it, was it at bar?
I honestly don't know the exact details, but what I do remember is they had this building that was essentially sitting there, almost an eyesore, not useful. And they wanted to turn it into something that looked good, was good for the community and useful. And so I think it took something that was a burden to that street and turned it into something valuable in the best way possible.
That's pretty much what he said.
I must mention that we approved the variance of smooth.
I was like,
And Lois approved it, Brandon made a second. Indication? Everybody agree? Got it. Is he still here? Did you leave already?
thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. We have a lot of work on it, so we appreciate it.
Good luck, you guys. Okay, so, next thing we're going to have is the discussion on the replat of lots 1 and 2 on Colorado Springs. So do you want to come forward with Silo Springs? Nobody here?
That's Ms. Sandra needs to be here for this to be considered.
I would think that someone would need to be here if they're going to discuss what that one wants to speak about.
I mean, I am involved in this replatting in as much as it affects Yellow Springs.
Well,
I don't think you can do that from here. So, you want to speak one?
I do. Planning is a little bit different than zoning. If it meets all the requirements of the plat, then it really, as a body, it's a shallow approve. So it meets all the requirements and it appears that it does, then I'd like the applicant to be here. And I think what we'll do in the future is when we meet these applicants and talk to them and get these applications, we'll tell them the requirement to be a planning commission and council. But I don't know if that was said to them. So in that case, I think that your alternative is yours to go ahead and approve the plat.
Well, I have a question on one of the things that was on here, maybe you can answer, is the access road. When I looked at the old, the existing versus what you're asking, can you tell me? I'm not expert at all.
So you're talking about Cielo Springs Drive,
Yes,
and then you're talking about has frontage on 281.
yes.
And then there is, that looks like a,
If you look on the existing one, I made it larger one.
Okay.
And what is that egress and easement that's on the existing one, and I do not see it at all?
that's an easement for PEC, correct?
Yeah.
And I apologize, I didn't review this. This was reviewed by, at the time, it was reviewed by Bureau of Veritas. So I actually, so you're asking where the access is for the road.
The access is via the triangular property that Mrs. Stadibach currently owns to the north of lots 2 of Cielo Springs. On 281, not by Cielo Springs Drive. To the north of lots 2, there's a triangular property that is about 1.04 acres. And the access to the 3.75 acre portion of the lot 2, which is called lot 2B, would be via that existing entrance that is already there over the property that is owned by Ms. Stadibach.
So they're just breaking up lot 2, which is like
Correct.
OA to lot 2A and 2B.
Correct.
So they're just, and there won't be a problem with any easements on that area?
No.
Really have access to, areas on, I mean, they've got nothing on that, what it's so.
They do.
Well,
It looks like it makes sense. The egress and the PEC lines were kind of confusing to me, but
well, they cleaned it up quite a bit, they have been reading across each other and.
okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I had to make it bigger so I could even tell.
Okay. And so basically both lots will just get access to 281.
Yes, I have that.
Correct. I'll make a motion to approve that. Unless that makes sense.
Okay, say that again, you gonna make a motion?
To approve.
For these lists.
For these lots.
And that's second that motion.
Any more discussion?
Well, if they come back and read it off, they're probably gonna have to do some, you know, you're concerned about that. I'm looking at these, conflict lines, you know, thinking they're gonna have to do something, look at it, if they come back and look it up. But that'll be another.
But that would be in the development stage and not at this point for the replat.
I don't think so.
Yes, sir. When you review the plans, you would look at that, but it's not in the city, so it'd be reviewed by the county.
Right, right.
Yes, sir.
All in agreement? You will be out of it before midnight. Okay, so now, the next thing that we have on the agenda is the Live Oak Medical Center remodel.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much for having me here this evening, and thank you for the work you do. I know there's a lot more fun ways to spend the month than that. The pay is great. I know. No, but no, seriously, yeah. Plankton needs good leadership, and y'all provide that. And I didn't know I was going to have to come before y'all for this project. And so my name's Mike Arnold, my wife Amy. We have a little construction company here in town. We've spent the last number of years on purpose finding rundown properties in Glencoe and fixing them up and making them nice again. The last another 100 years, we've done a number of houses, and as our family and family business has grown, we've moved up the food chain just a little bit, and we're biting off something now, biggest project to date. We've been driving by that Live Oak nursing home place for years now, since it's been empty, and little by little, it just has been running down and running down. It's a beautiful place, great location, but it's just not in use. And I got to know the owner's daughter, Lindy, a while back, and I've walked to that place, gosh, a dozen times for the last few years trying to figure out what to do with it. There is no market for a nursing home where they'd be using it as a nursing home. It's special built, though. What do you do with it? And just in talking with Brandon, a number of folks, knowing there's really a need here for affordable housing, we came up with the plans to convert it into a apartment building. And so we have the house, the building that we're buying. When I first started on that, went to talk to the city in depth, and the city, Olga, and in consultation with the administrator, told me all you need is a building permit. That's all you need. You don't need anything with P&Z. They told me that from the beginning. They told me that multiple times throughout the process. So we've undertaken considerable investment and effort to get the building permits. We have them in place. All the plans, all the engineering, all the subcontractors, ADA, asbestos, all the stuff has been submitted to the city, and they've approved our building permit to proceed with this. But here, a couple weeks ago, someone said, well, you should probably go talk to P&Z. So happy to come and share with y'all what we're doing. I don't believe there's any action necessary from my understanding.
Who told you that?
Olga, in consultation with the administrator, plus the former city administrator as well. It's an existing structure. We're not changing the floor plan. Not changing the footprint. We're not adding to it, not taking away from it. And it was, there was multiple family units living. There was a lot of people living there. But, we're just remodeling, basically, actually reducing the number of beds that were in it. And so that's what, I've been told from the beginning, all we needed was the building permit. But I'm here to lay it in front of y'all so you can know what we're doing. If there is something we need to do with y'all, let's get it done. The building's approximately 14,000 square feet. It's been empty since 2017. It sits on 0.86 acre, starting to fall apart if you've seen it. We're purchasing it to remodel it to a 15-unit apartment complex. It had 28 some odd units in its existence as a old home, yes. And the goal is to provide much needed affordable housing in the city. We're not going to change the footprint. We are going to be cutting breezeways through the wings to provide entrances to the apartments, so that the outside profile doesn't really change. Where the windows are, windows will be. Not a lot of profile change on the outside. There's an outbuilding that is rusted out, doesn't look great. We're going to give that a facelift. It's going to be a laundry facility. There's already parking in place. We're going to resurface those, but there's ample parking for the plans that we're doing. It will not be government subsidized, so it's not going to be this rent controlled Section 8 stuff. It is going to be affordable, but not, low end. It's going to be nice, middle of the road rentals. I have a breakdown there on the front page of the number of units, their sizes, and the target rent that we're aiming for those. You can see it's a lot of quite affordable middle of the road rentals. The biggest unit, the plan is to have fully furnished. We own a number of rentals in town already. We found a big demand for people that are moving here and moving and building new houses. They have a family that needs a place to live for 6 months or a year. And so we found there's quite a demand for that. So having at least one of the units set aside for that, at least in the short run, is the plan. As much as possible, we're working with local subcontractors, material suppliers, et cetera. Like I said, all the plans and permits and stuff have been approved by the city. We're ready to roll. So just wanted to lay that in front of y'all. If there's action needed, let's talk about that.
The only thing I'm looking at is it's in a R5 zone, which means that if he's going to have multi-family, they're going to have special use permit. So what are you going to do with that law?
So again, I'm pretty new to your zoning. I've looked at everything. My understanding, while we're looking at it again, my understanding though was that he has everything he needs. We'll have to look at whether he needs a special use permit. The only issue that we would have is I haven't seen the site plan. We've seen, I think they pulled the permit, and I think the use will be different. Will they need more parking, those sort of things? But there shouldn't be an issue with drainage. There shouldn't, they'll have to pull permits for water, electrical, plumbing, all the normal stuff, building permits, and then we'll have to have inspections. I don't think.
Yeah, it's all built into the permit process.
Right. So we'll look at that. I didn't think there was an issue with zoning, but we'll have to. And some of it might be because it was already a non-conforming use. We'll take a look at it. If there's something that needs to come before you, we'll
It's been dormant for a while, but since it's an R5 zone, it's required to have a special use permit.
If that's the case, then we'll work on that. But
Is it sprinkled already?
It is, and that's those are remain. So it will be sprinkled, the fire suppression system intact at the higher level, because it was, a medical facility. It had the highest level of fire suppression. We're maintaining that. It's going to be rejiggered to fit the modified floor plan, but yeah, that's going to stay.
I mean, my thought is something that Blanca really needs in a place that's perfect for it. So it just made a lot of sense to me, but
I think it's a great plan.
I mean, that's been sitting there for 5 years doing nothing. At least this helps the community.
Randy has been here before, and she's mentioned the same thing about having something done for it.
Yeah.
To it. Both my parents passed away. So they were there for a while and passed away. So,
And it is in the zone of the city that is intended for that type of use, but I agree with you, it just requires a special.
Just work with Lauren on that. Is that the?
Sure, and he'll be with you, I'm sure, for it.
Yes, sir.
It's not a problem. But from what the conversation is up here, nobody is against what you're doing. We just need to make sure we do it correctly.
Dot the i's, cross the t's. Yes, ma'am. That's why I'm here.
I'm glad you came, and this is a discussion. Do you have any more to say?
Well, I was gonna say, so they're gonna need a special use permit, right?
Yes,
Do we want to just vote on that on our end, or is that?
so we have to do a special use permit. They have to do that.
Okay.
That's the only thing.
Just discussion tonight.
we'll work with the developer as we're doing that. That will be on the next agenda, next month.
I'll come back.
Yes, sir.
See you then. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Mike.
That's one part.
You can wait on. Okay, so we need now to go right on to the applicant for P&Z. Do I need to, I've got a discussion on this, so I guess I have to do anything. Okay, we need to go with Terry McKenzie. Is she here?
She is not. I will say she is becoming very active in the community. She's on the board of the chamber. Know her well. I think she would be a good help. But
Well, the last time you said you wanted to show up.
And I agreed at that point. I had not met her at that point.
And
So.
so I made sure that everyone got an email, and I got notice that she did get an email, but she's supposed to appear tonight. So y'all know that?
Fair enough.
What about Marissa? No? And then one up. You got the email.
I did get the email.
Would you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've lived in Blanco for a year now. I've been waiting to come back here for a good 10 years. Was a military family for, 17 years and finally got back to Texas. Glad to be here. Blanco has grown a lot since I was here last 10 years ago. And I've been very excited to get involved in the community. We're a business owner. I'm a business owner. We don't do a lot of work in the community. We're internet based. So, we're always looking for opportunities to get involved. Planning and zoning is something that I get overly excited about for some reason. So always have since I took a class in college. I was a history teacher. That's about my resume. But like I said, now I'm a business owner and love the community.
Yeah, so kind of business you are?
Marketing company. Marketing company.
Any more questions for Marissa?
You're a resident of Blanco?
Yes, in the city, live on it actually.
Okay.
Because I'm getting my seat tonight, I tell you. Thank you.
Laura Clinton?
Lived in Blanco for 3 years now. Three. I grew up in a small town in Southwest Texas. For work, I'm a computer programmer and I'm also the president of Blanco Wheels and Feet, which is a nonprofit here that promotes walkability. Shortly after I moved here, I started attending P&Z meetings and found them really interesting. I read the UDC and the Comprehensive Master Plan, and I noticed that walkability was a big or recurring theme in the Comprehensive Master Plan. I'm a big proponent of walkability. I read a lot about it, and I'd like to be more directly involved in Blanco's future.
I think Laura would be a great addition to the P&Z. I think if she's involved. I think she also had recently been appointed to the US 21 overlay committee, so she's involved in various things. And I know her personally. She's the girlfriend of my son. She is also she has invested a lot of money here in Blanco, in the city of Blanco. So I think her heart is in the right place.
So since you've been back in Blanco, you've been very involved with the city and various other commissions.
It's one of the reasons I wanted to move back to a small town, was to be able to get more involved in that.
Any more questions, folks? Okay, what about Jan West Stanbrook? No? What about Lynn Valencia? Come on up, Lynn.
Hello again. I spoke with y'all last time we were here. So I have a advanced real estate background. I'm in commercial banking. I've worked for the Department of Transportation. I've been in the oil and gas business. I am not afraid of the UDC at 300 pages because I read those documents all week long. I think I can do a lot for the city. I've actually purchased a home on 281 and the bathtubs are gone.
Where do you live now?
With my sister.
In Blanco?
Yes. I work in San Antonio. We are opening a new market there. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley and went to school in San Marcos. And my mother's family grew up, they were from San Antonio. So was in Florida for the last like 20 years working. I've lived in a lot of different cities in my lifetime, from small, historic to big cities, Sarasota. So I bring a lot of knowledge and a lot of things that I think will be helpful for the board. I'm a doer. I can read a survey. I can read an environmental report. So those kind of things I think I can help with.
Your intention is to move here to Blanco?
Yes, we closed our house in January.
Okay. But do you intend to occupy it as your residence?
Yes.
Commissioners,
Well, we have 4.
So we have one more.
we don't have anyone else. Two didn't show up. We talked to Laura, we talked to Lynn,
Oh, gotcha.
Jan didn't show up, we talked to Marissa, and Terry didn't show up.
We've got all,
So we have 3 here tonight.
This
So
is
we have 3 seats.
I would make a motion that we commit this to city council, right? We have to.
Yes, they have to go through city council.
With the 3 that showed up and who will have good qualifications.
Yeah, I'll approve them.
And so, it's going to be, Marissa. Lynn Renee, Susan Field, and Laura Swinson. Is that right?
That's right.
Susan, given the nature of my relationship to Laura, I would ask you to use one with those.
You better sit back. She's not reading. Okay, so, do we have a motion? Did you make a motion to accept them? Oh, you made a motion to accept them, Laura? Okay. And you second?
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor? Okay. So, 3 and, Marty had to keep himself. So you 3 will need to appear before the city council tomorrow evening. And we'll see if council will approve you. And if so, we'll see you on the March meeting. We have chairs available. Okay, so the last thing that we have, and welcome to the 3 ladies. Glad you're here. We need all 3 of you and all your expertise and your background. So they're very good for the city. The last thing on the agenda is, although we don't have a full commission yet, I'm very concerned that we don't have a vice chair. If, we kept saying that we were going to get a vice chair and a secretary. And we never had enough people here to have anyone come forward and to be able to make that consideration. But I do think that we need to have a vice chair. Just luckily, I had COVID, but it was on the January meeting period, or otherwise we wouldn't have anyone to step into the chair. So tonight we need to at least elect our vice chairperson.
Well, I'm making a motion that, Brandon, yeah.
Brandon?
I was gonna make a motion for you.
That's called passive.
I can't talk, I can't see, I can't hear. I'm making a push.
I would second that motion. But the question is to Brandon, would you accept? If you like it.
My
Okay,
own,
keep in mind, this is only until May.
yeah,
Because in May, unless the city council changes the month, because for the last 50 years, in May is when we have elected new officers. So unless that's changed, you're only going to have March, April, and May.
and yeah, that's fine. My only hesitation is just how much more you guys know about this stuff than I will be there. That's fine.
We'll all learn together.
I will, yes.
Okay, so Lois, made a motion for Brendan.
2022.
And Hines seconded. We had a little conversation, we're okay now? Everybody agree with that? Okay, folks. Meeting closed.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, I did not.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, this is the biggest we've ever done, closing on it on Wednesday.